Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys.
Dutton and Albo won't debate me.
Supreme Court cases, providing his Trump is an outsider. Outsiders create competition. Nothing annoys the insiders more than the presence of outsiders with power. The problem is that there are too few of them to make a difference. There are too
Hi,
few
Gary.
Trumps.
Good to see
The
you.
solution is to appoint more outsiders, starting with the Supreme Court. And I said the best candidate for the Supreme Court, who is an outsider, is a historian who owns the largest private collection of original founders document. He has already been involved, I said, 7 Supreme Court cases, providing historical evidence on which many lawyers and judges are still unaware. He rattles off American names, dates, legal cases like no lawyer or judge I know. Furthermore, he understands the original intent of the Framers' Declaration of Independence and Constitution. No one currently has better firsthand knowledge of the founders' own writings than David Barton. If he would accept the position, he or someone like him should be nominated to the Supreme Court. Would you accept?
That's a really good question. I would say I would love to, but probably at this point, because of the way that works with all my white hair, I want a younger guy that has the same beliefs, and there are some out there.
I think a knowledge of history is essential to justice. We have so much injustice because people don't understand history. And this is what I love about you. You're going to bring all that historical knowledge, and difficult legal decisions have to be based on historical facts.
Yeah. If you look in the scriptures, and if you were to say academics according to the scriptures, there's some subjects that the scriptures doesn't put a heavy emphasis on, like maybe mathematics. Now, science is there. We know science is all over, but there's some, and that doesn't mean they're not important. But you know what the scripture does put a lot of emphasis on is history. Recall the former days, remember the former times. What we have in Hebrews 11 is a history lesson. What we have in Romans 10 is a history lesson. What we have in Romans 13 is a history lesson. History, 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 history. And anytime they forgot their history, they fell away and they did wrong things. And a revival is always in the Bible. It's really centered around history, like Josiah. He's trying to rebuild the temple, get God back in the center of their lives. And they found that old scroll and they read that and said, whoa, we used to be like this. And then they brought that scroll out and it led to a revival. So I think history is probably the most important topic. And one of the ways I know that's true spiritually is, do you know what the least tested on topic in education is right now? It's history. We test everything. We test all the stems. We test the science and the math. We do the reading. All that's great. But history is what God puts the greatest emphasis on. And that is the one we test the least at this point in time. So we have the highest level of historical literacy in the history of our country. It's interesting to me that when you look right now at immigrants who come to America who maybe have never lived here at all in their life, in 3 months, they can take that immigration test. And right now, 93% of foreign immigrants passed our immigration test, which is about American history. Only 6% of high school seniors can pass the immigration test. So our own people do not know our history at all. And I think that's a real important subject to go back to. If I were to say the number one subject everybody has to master is reading, because if you can't read, you can't read God's word. Number two subject behind reading in God's word would be history. And if you don't get history right, you will make the same mistake over and over. And that's what America is doing right now. And we're headed down a pathway that has never ended well in the history of the world. And for us to be arrogant enough to think that, well, it'll be different for us, you just don't know anything about history if you think we're different from everybody else right now.
It almost seems like it's an intentional weakening, like the weakened men and the weakening our psyche with lack of knowledge of history. I wonder how they got us to this far. Can you let's start delving into history, okay? Tariffs are the big hot topic right now. Tariffs or no tariff in American history?
There's two ways to use tariffs. One is you can use it as a negotiating tool, and the others you can use as long-term economic policy. Now, I'll point out that at the time of the founding fathers, virtually 100% of all federal funds came in off tariffs. They used tariffs. George Washington imposed a 5% tariff on all products. That's where we got the money to deal. We did not have income tax. Income tax we had at times of war. So we had tariffs running the government, a few kind of product taxes that we had. But at the time of Abraham Lincoln, we got in the Civil War and there was so much money spent, they instituted a temporary income tax. And so that income tax, temporary tax that was there, it was temporary, got them to the war, then they got away from it and went back to tariffs. We kept tariffs, and that even as you get up to the 20th century, over 90% of federal income comes from tariffs. So when you look at the time of Woodrow Wilson, that's the first time we go to a progressive income tax where that we don't treat everyone the same. And by the way, just for tax policy in the Bible, God is into the flat tax, if you will, because I don't care. If you look at a tithe, he wants 10%. Whether you're rich or poor, it's 10%. Now, the poor will always pay less than the rich total amount, but everyone is treated exactly the same with that flat tax, if you will. So everyone has the same percentage. God doesn't say, well, if you're poor, it's only 2% tax, but if you're 2% tithe, and if you're rich, it's a 23%. He treats everybody the same. So that's the way we had the income tax until Woodrow Wilson. But even then, the income tax did not bring in much money. It was still tariffs and duties. And when you get to President Franklin Roosevelt, it's the first time really that tariffs and duties get set aside for an income tax. And so what we're living with now, thinking that duties and tariffs are unusual, that's only been in the last couple of generations. America existed on tariffs. And I think that's also a biblical teaching. Remember Jesus' economic teachings.
Wow, Di.
Paying the temple
You're
tax.
rolling
He
it
looked
out.
at Peter. He said, Peter, he said, who's supposed to be paying the taxes? The children or the foreigners? And Peter said, foreigners, of course. He said, that's true. Jesus agreed. He said, but so that no one will be offended, go down, catch a fish. When you get the fish, get the gold coin, go pay our temple tax. But Jesus pointed out that it is not the sons who pay the tax, it is the foreigners who pay the tax. And that's what a tariff and a duty does. It keeps the tax off the people and puts it on those that are outside. And so that's what Trump is doing right now. Most of us don't ask the question, why is it when you stand at an intersection in Europe, you never see an American car go through that intersection? Now, you stand at an American intersection here in America, you're going to see all sorts of cars.
Diane, anyone still involved in the GAB, they deserve what they get. There's enough information out there to let you know what's going on. And these people are just dumb sheep. They're not smart people.
Go through. But in Europe, you won't see them. Why? Because they've got a 26% tariff on all American cars, which prices the American car out of the market. So we don't have any competition, which is why we're averaging $130 billion a month in a trade deficit right now. Hard to have a good economy when you're $130 billion a month in a trade deficit. And that's why those duties and those tariffs, that's the way it had been from the very beginning. I think that was Jesus's kind of idea that the sons don't pay the taxes. It's the foreigners that pay the taxes. And that's what you do with the tariff.
You and I must be twins, because I said exactly those words a week ago when I tried to explain to people out in Australia, Asia, trying to tell them this is what the Bible says, that Jesus says the sons of the kingdom are exempt from the tax and you should be using tariffs, and it seems so outside of America. You need to know people are saying that Trump is dangerous. He's going to destroy the world economy. He's going to destroy the share market. And I said it's not going to happen. The share market will come back up. But I think that he has a plan that by dropping the share market, I think intentionally, that it then drove money into the treasury, into the bonds. And then that lowers the rates, which helps everybody. Even in Australia, they're talking about lowering the interest rates. One man, one leader with a strategic decision can lower expenses, oil price, and interest rate for everybody that's got a mortgage. You got to be happy. And Trump's done that without the cooperation of the Fed and other people who don't want to play ball with him. And he just forced their hand.
Yeah.
But do you see a bigger game? Like, what is it when people are thinking that Trump's dangerous outside of America, especially? Do you have an answer for them? What would you say?
You have hit something that is very dear to my heart.
That's a pretty good question.
And it is not necessarily the answer, but it is the way that we get to the answer the question you've asked. I'm going to go back in American history for a bit, but for the first 3 centuries in American history, the
They
purpose
deserve
of
what's coming,
education
don't they,
was to
Di?
teach you how to think. You were able to feed yourself. You didn't have to have a teacher feed you. You could feed yourself, but we taught you the process and how to think and how to use your mind.
Diane, my mum watches them scammer stuff on YouTube, and women send people to Kenya and Nigeria hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they've never even met the person. Like, people, oh man, you deserve that if you're that stupid. A fool and his money soon parted.
Starting in the 1910s, 15s, and 20s, actually started in the 1880s, they started proposing it. But it became policy in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s as we changed education, and we changed things, not teaching students how to think, but teaching them how to learn. And a learner takes the information they're given and they file that away. So, for example, the first time in American history that we ever used multiple choice test or true, false, or fill in the blank was in the 1920s. And that's all about, did I, the teacher, tell you A, B, C, or D? Did I, the teacher, tell you this, true or false? And it's all about you reciting back to me what I told you. And so we no longer are thinkers. So I've heard that Trump is just, I mean, he's really, really dangerous. And so I'll repeat that.
Yeah.
Well, if you go back to thinking, if you look at Jesus in the Gospels, Jesus asked 339 questions in the Gospels. And most of them he never answered.
Diane, my mum's got this little thing you put a battery in, and it meows like a cat. And when the Indian scammers ring her, she just plays that cat meowing. They stick around for a while.
He asked questions to make people think. And when they're like, by whose authority do you do this? And he turned it right around on them and said, well, John's baptism of God or man. He just asked the question into the whole discussion. So this aspect of thinking is what we don't do well. And so the way you help that is you ask questions rather than engage and say, you know, that's really ridiculous. That's just what, say, why would you say that? How is he dangerous? And start making them defend their belief. And it gets really shallow really fast. So you just tell me you're repeating what you've heard everybody else say, and you really don't know why he would be dangerous. And by the way, how can a tariff be dangerous? And you start asking them economic questions that they don't have the answer to. They should. But this whole progressive education thing pretty much took the world in the 1920s, and that's what we're stuck with now. And so we teach people who respond to sound bites, which is why we get so polarized so easily, because I know what my sound bites are, you know what your sound bites are. We hate each other. We don't have any conversation. We don't have conversations where we actually think. And so going back to asking questions, 339 Jesus asked, that's the best way to turn a conversation in the right direction, is start asking questions, because that leads you to truth.
It seems that we're going to touch on the Department of Education. This is an important topic. I think Trump's gotten rid of it federally. I'm going to read a chapter that might seem a little bit old or outdated, some of the information, but I hope you can bring it up to date here. In chapter 12 of Trump's Unfinished Business, it's called Save the Children. The chapter Save the Children, Education Reform. I said that why don't we spend a portion of the $60 billion annual budget from the Department of Education to incentivize people with experience to share their knowledge? People with unique achievements stand out. Find them. Our children deserve the best. I name a few people, and I mentioned you. Historian David Barton, who owns the largest private collection of original founding era documents, could vastly improve the history curriculum across America. Robert Kiyosaki, who sold over 32 million books in 51 countries, could certainly create a financial literacy class. Bill O'Reilly, at that time, he was the highest rated cable news show for 16 years. He could write a media literacy class along with proven journalists like Tucker Carlson, John Stossel. He won 19 Emmy Awards, 5 awards from the National Press Club. So I'm just saying that there are people with experience. We're getting people without experience teaching our children. We could use that budget. But now that there's no Department of Education, where do you think, where should Trump go with this? How do we, because 50 different states are not going to create godly, historically accurate curriculum. Where do you take it from here?
You do that.
One of the things that there's some principles here, and I try to take things back to principles. One of the principles that I think is a really good principle is the principle of competition. God says, test me, try me. And so he's always wanting us to prove it. And so when you get into competition gives you better hamburgers. If there's 4 hamburger joints on 4 corners, they're going to compete with each other. I'm going to get a good hamburger. Same with clothes, same with cars, same with it. But we don't do that with education. We lock you into a socialistic system that has no competition. It has no outside pressures. It does not respond. So right now there are 32 states and cities that have gone to competition education. In every single case, the scores have gone up for the students. So we're dealing with a systemic problem on a philosophy that is not allowing competition. Now, competition, some of the things that work better are like classical education, classical Christian education things, because they go back to making you think. And it's all about learning how to think. And the more you learn how to think, the more your scores skyrocket and go through the roof. And so that's one of the big things. And that's why Trump is trying to do what he's done. And let me give kind of a
Hey, Trace, good to see
thing
you.
on Trump Department of Education. Trump has basically shut it down, but he can't abolish it. And he can't abolish it because it was created by Congress in 1979. And so he cannot wipe out a law that Congress has created. He can say, I'm only going to have one person working in the Department of Education, and they'll turn on the lights every morning, turn them off every night, and that's it. So same he just did with USAID. He got rid of the foreign aid thing. He can't close it down because that was started again under, I think, 1961 under John.
I don't think he wants to close it down. He just wants to get rid of the wasteful money.
F. Kennedy. He can't get rid of what Congress started,
Yeah.
but he can basically throttle it down. And so at this point in time, the Department of Education is essentially shuttered. They still have to fulfill the obligations that have been given them by Congress.
That's what they get for getting our kids all mixed up in the head about their gender. That's why Trump done it.
Last several years, so he's going to keep enough people to do that. But we're finding that the money is going, for example, I think there's $9 billion that goes to Harvard. Really?
20. I saw 20 billion that they stopped sending to Harvard. Why?
Well, they've stopped sending. Harvard has got a $53 billion endowment, number one. Number two, they are really anti-America in so many ways. Why in the world are we pumping money into people who come out hating America? They're very anti-biblical. They're very anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, all things you don't want. So why would we be pumping money into that? And so what they're making is billions.
Especially when it's got its own 53 billion kitty.
Away from schools like Columbia, Harvard. Harvard just today said that you can't tell us what to teach. Well, no, and we don't intend to, but we can tell you we're not going to give you money for teaching stupid stuff. And that's actually what's happening is he's holding the money back. And of course, now they're squirming. So now Harvard has gone out and they've put out bond packages to try to raise $12 billion to keep them funded because Trump is not going to fund the nonsense that they're doing. So I think we're seeing changes in the right direction. But one of the things, and this took me a long time to get here, I'm sorry, but back in 1791, there was a debate on the floor of Congress in which James Madison was involved. And it was, what should Congress be spending money on? And he said, absolutely not on education. Congress shouldn't spend money on that because that belongs to the states. Under the Constitution, there's only 17 things that the federal government's allowed to do. They're called enumerated powers. Everything else goes to the states. Well, guess what? That's healthcare. That's all welfare, all social programs. That's all education. That's all police stuff, all transportation. None of that's supposed to be federal. And so what you've got is when we start drawing back and get rid of the Department of Education, you're going to find education scores go up because they're not pumping that money in to teach stupid stuff.
Good.
And you're going to find that more states are having competition, and states are great laboratories for experiments. So we've already seen scores going up, and getting rid of the Department of Education will do nothing.
I will say this is creating a lot of joblessness. I wonder how he's going to get around this. You can't just fire everyone and leave them on the streets to fend for themselves. They got to have some sort of plan, surely.
But help that competition increase, and we'll see better scores yet.
Yeah. Part of my heart is I find it would be difficult to make educated kids if they're biblically illiterate. And so I want to see Trump, bring biblical literacy back. Without the Department of Education, many states believe that you can't even quote the Bible. Again, I'm going to quote you. This is in chapter 12, Save the Children. David Barton said, the issue is that many schools don't offer Bible literacy courses because they think they can't legally. And we are saying, well, yes, you can. So can you enlighten us on this? What can the states do?
Already, the states can do all Bible courses. We right now have 1,200 public school districts with 200,000 students that are going through the Bible as the textbook for a credit in that course. It's a credit course.
Geez, that's
so
good
already,
news.
that's 1,200 school districts in the nation teaching the Bible. Why do you say we can't teach the Bible when people say that? Why would you say that? And on top of that, we go, I'm going to go back to what the Supreme Court started doing in 2019 with Trump justices in the Supreme Court. They came up with what's called the history and tradition test. They said, look, if you can show that a religious activity is both historical and traditional, we're going to assume that it's constitutional. Well, you can sure show the Bible in schools as historical and traditional. The very first public school law passed in America was called the Old Deluder Satan Act because Satan's trying to keep us out of the scriptures. So your very first
Say that again. What was the name? What was the name of the act?
It's called the Old Deluder Satan. And it says, it being the one chief project of that old deluder Satan to keep men from the knowledge of the scriptures as he has in former days. And then they say, because that's Satan's goal is to keep kids out of the scriptures, we're not letting it happen. And the first public school law said that when you get 50 kids in your community, you get a teacher and you start teaching the Bible. When you get 100 kids, you build a school, you start teaching the Bible. And so what we have a report from New Jersey Public Schools in 1816. The superintendent of public education in New Jersey schools, we consider that a very liberal state now. 1816, the superintendent of public education reported that nearly all first and second graders were memorizing the entire Gospel of John in the first and second grade. Now, I don't know adults who do that, but that was public schools. And then if I take you to Pennsylvania in 1892, the superintendent of public instruction said, every student, every week, is going to memorize something patriotic and going to memorize a chapter of the Bible every week. So every public school kid in Pennsylvania is memorizing a chapter of the Bible every week and a patriotic poem or item. That was public education. So what the court's saying, all you've got to be able to do is show that it's historical and traditional, and we're going to say that it's constitutional. That's easy, which is why Texas just passed that law to put the Bible back in schools, because that's easy. It goes back to the very first law. It goes all the way up to 1962. You're looking at 320 years. Easy to have the Bible in schools.
So you're saying we have successful models of Bible-based education being implemented in public schools?
Well, it's not successful.
I saw a photo in Texas not years ago, it was taken years ago, back in 1959, and there was a building, like, let's say a 20-story high building, and the lights made a cross. They turned the lights out on the building so only a cross would show. You don't see that sort of stuff anymore, do you?
Yeah, and that brings us to another issue. Only 9% of Christians read the Bible on a daily basis. So who's going to teach the Bible to the kids in school? Because and by the way, not only do only 9% of Christians read the Bible daily, only 4% of Christians have a biblical worldview. So we're looking at a church that thinks more secular than it does biblical. So who's going to teach?
We'd be in them 4%, wouldn't we, guys?
The Bible and thinking to students, because we don't have that many adults to teach that many classes. So the problem we have is we have a lot of Christians who are biblically illiterate. And that's the way a lot of the southern states were back in the American founding, in the Jamestown area. If you went up to the north, Massachusetts and Pennsylvania, and they were really biblically literate. But when you came down into Georgia and South Carolina, et cetera, they were biblically illiterate. And that's where America is right now. So we could be teaching those things in the class. except we don't have teachers who know most of those things. The American Bible Society just this week came out with their new report. They have an annual report they come out with every year on Bible reading. And in the last 3 years, we have 29 million Americans who stopped reading the Bible at all. So we keep coming down, 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 down. During the COVID period, we lost about 23 million who stopped reading the Bible at all. So the answer, Pastor, is we have the opportunity to do so. What we need is some adults who know it, who can teach it. And that's why there is some good curriculum out. The National Council on Bible Curriculum in public schools is one of those resources that public school teachers can go there, get the curriculum, and just follow the curriculum. It'll help you teach it. But this is something that can be done in our public schools for sure.
Whatever you think, there's a banana to make your body sing.
Meet neighbours Cole and Chanel. Cole forgot to get his electricity connected. Cole had...
I don't know if I'll overstep my boundary here, but I'm a little bit concerned whether our Christian leaders have a good biblical worldview, read the Bible every day. And I'm wondering, the advisors, you probably know better than me, but the advisors around Trump, do they have this very strong stance, on the inspiration of the word, the importance of the word of God in government and justice? Because hardly any preacher, I'm going to say besides me, I don't know if you know many, who preach on a weekly basis about biblical justice. And we're not taking it from a social justice, climate justice point of view, just biblical, divine justice. I think if Trump knew what the Bible says about almost every issue.
Okay, I'm disappointed with Steve here because he knows damn well Paula White is one of Trump's advisors and she's full of the prosperity bullshit. So I'm really disappointed in Steve here, not pulling that up.
He would solve the problem biblically. But are the advisors there? I felt I had to move from Australia because America would look like it was such in trouble, and the Lord asked me to go there, and we've done what we can. We speak at conventions and conferences, but I still don't know who is advising President Trump, and like the faith-based initiative, who are these people who are saying, is this law or policy passing the biblical standard, or is there a better solution in the Bible? Can you tell us?
Yeah, Pastor, I'm gonna take you backward for a bit to answer the question. Now, first off, he's got thousands of advisors. I will tell you that this is the highest percentage of biblically sound, biblically thinking advisor that I've seen in my lifetime. Now, that doesn't mean they all are, because they are not. There's a whole lot that are not. They're very good in what they do, but they're not biblical. But I will say, I have not seen any administration with more biblically sound advisors by percentage and numbers than what is there now. Now, I want to back up for a minute because the American Christian church, the condition of America is a result of...
Diane, I also seen him give Justin Trudeau a good rap. Like, he was really excited to meet Justin Trudeau, and he's Castro's son. Steve could not know that. He could not know that. He'd have to know that. If we know it, he's an educated guy. He would have to know that too.
The Christian.
So he is rather choosy on what he believes.
Church in America. I mean, just bottom line. So what we have is we have 384,000 pastors, senior pastors, churches in America. And George Barna, who's probably the most famous pollster in America, strong Christian biblical guy, but he's a noted pollster. George Barna calls 500 pastors a day, and he asks them 7 basic questions. And those questions would be orthodox to Christianity for the last 2,000 years. Did Jesus live a sinless life? Can you earn your way to heaven, or do you have to get through Jesus? Does the Bible have absolute morals? It's simple stuff. Currently, 72% of American pastors say they disagree with those 7 tenets. So you're starting with 72% of American pastors don't even agree with the easiest stuff in the Bible. Then we took that 28%, and that 28% that did agree with the Bible, we call them theologically conservative. They agree that the Bible is the basis of life. So then we started asking them, we said, okay, Pastor, do you think the Bible addresses every issue of life? And we specifically gave 14 areas. Do you think the Bible addresses economics? Does it address marriage and sexuality? Does the Bible address immigration? Does it address justice? It went through. And between 91 and 97% of those pastors said, yes, the Bible talks about that issue. So that's great. That's 107,000 pastors. That'll turn a nation. Then we asked them, do you talk about those issues in your church or from the pulpit? And they said, oh, no. Those are political issues. We don't talk
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
No. You just told me that was from the Bible. And
Right.
because you're calling it politics, you're not teaching what the Bible says. So this is where we have a shortage of good advisors for the president, is the churches they come out of are not training people what the Bible says on issues they agree that the Bible talks about. You know, what does the Bible say on all those issues, economics, everything else? And so that's the biggest problem we got right now, Pastor, is Trump has a higher percentage of biblically sound people than I've seen in my lifetime. And it is making a difference. There's no question it is. I was just up this morning till 1 o'clock working on some projects for the White House with some of those folks and things that are happening. No question it's good, but there's also no question that it's not near the percentage it should be. And that's because the church is not producing people that think biblically, and Christians are not reading the Bible enough to know what the Bible says. So, man, we appreciate all the help you can send to America right now. Because the church is in a crisis here, and I don't mean that to sound negative, but that's just the condition where we are. Is, you know, we look in the mirror and see where we are. We know the condition of our own flock, so to speak, as the Bible says.
Yeah, I don't think you can be negative enough, because the people are asleep. You know, the church is asleep. And my concern is that even if we get a couple of years of respite, maybe up to 4.
Yeah, Shawnee, I just said that. I'm really disappointed at Steve for not pulling that up.
Years of the golden age, it's going to go away. The enemy, you know, prophecy says the enemy is going to come in the end time. And I think the plan that the devil has for America is unquestionably some kind of civil war. And it's unfathomable. But there are ways to avoid civil war. There are ways, you know, like the Bible has it. You have 13 tribes that can't get along. How did God unite them? So I want you to speak into this, and I'm just going to give you a quote again from Trump's Unfinished Business, which was a template for justice and good governance that's been published for several years, many years before he was elected. In Chapter 9, How to Avoid Civil War, I said, compared to now, Americans during colonial times were at least united as Christians. They simply belonged to different Christian denominations. They should have, this is my belief, is they should have put the words Christ, Christian, any of the 10 commandments into the Constitution, but they did not. It caused much confusion centuries later about whether or not America is a Christian nation. Americans have never been more divided. The clock cannot be turned back. Inserting Christ or Christian into the Constitution was tried in 1863, 1874, 1896, 1910, 1954. Each time it failed. Christians.
Shawnee, I was just thinking of the stupid tongues. How she just repeats herself and whacks something. It's a dead set nut job, but it's dangerous because people follow her. And she influences Trump.
Have resorted to researching mountains of original founding fathers' documents to prove that they were truly Christian and not irreligious deists or Freemason, though some of them were, but the majority weren't. That's where we're at. People are confused. I think Christ would have united us, some kind of a Christian foundation to say we are a Christian nation. A Buddhist nation is not ashamed to say they're a Buddhist nation. You know, I'm half Thai. They're not ashamed. You go to any Islamic nation, they're not ashamed. We're a Muslim nation. We have Ramadan. The Buddhists have Visa. We have Christmas, but a little bit late. It should have all been there in the Constitution. Is it too late now for America to be truly the United States of America, given we're becoming more pluralistic, more diverse, and the people coming in are not being united by the Christian?
To me, America is a very divided nation. So is Australia. We're pretty divided here too.
Foundation. What do we do about it?
It's a great question, and this is a strange answer, but right now, the percentage of legal immigrants coming in is a higher percentage of Christian than those that live here. So we're actually getting more Christian infusion from those that are coming in from the outside than we are from those who live here. And that is the result of our education system. Luke 6:40, Jesus says, every student, when he's fully trained, will be like his teacher. And we have given the education system over to secularists, progressives, crazy people for the last 3 generations. We're starting to get it back. One of the things that we have is there are 7,500 state legislators in the United States. So there's 435 in the House, in the U.S. Congress. There's 100 in the Senate. But then you go down to the 50 states. And in 50 states, numbers vary from state to state, but there's a total of 7,500 legislators. 1,000 of those legislators are in our network that we have. And so in that network, because the Constitution does allow states to do so much, that's where so much change can come from. And that's where we're seeing so many biblical thinkers and biblical legislators is at the state level. And so we are seeing so much good come out of those. Now, at the federal level, I have to be careful how I say this. I would say that right now, at the federal level, 93% of Congress says it's Christian. Now, that's what they profess in their belief. But if you judge them by their fruits, that's not anywhere close. They're voting for things the Bible says are anathema. So they clearly don't have a biblical worldview. But at the state level, that's where we're getting help. That's where we're seeing many good things come. And that's why I think what President Trump is doing is getting the feds away from so many areas and letting the states retake those areas. And that's where we're going to get healthy. And we're seeing this even down. There's a church here locally. I live close to the 13th largest city in America. So of our big cities, we have a lot of big cities, and it's about 5 or 6 million, whatever it is. But the 13th largest city, and one church there said, you know, what's going on in our schools is not acceptable. That's and right. They ran 21 candidates for school board out of their church, and they got 20 of the 21 elected. So 20 of 21, yeah. Down in Houston, they got every candidate elected. Churches got together and said, hey, we need better school board people to run education. We're seeing that all over the nation. We saw 78 school boards picked up in Colorado.
Wow, that's really great news. I'm impressed with that.
Various states. So we're seeing it get healthy from the bottom up. And I think that's the way it always happens in the scriptures, is you get healthy from the bottom up, not the top down.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we're seeing this growing health start to rise. We're seeing churches get rejuvenated. On our college campuses now across the United States, genuine revivals are occurring. We're seeing a restoration of relationships with Jesus and faith and Bible reading. That's all what it takes to get healthy. So I look for the president to be able to hold it while everybody's getting
Catholic,
well.
are they?
And then as they get well,
then
we're going to start sending some of those state legislators to the federal Congress. And at the federal Congress, that will improve our Congress there. So because you have training, man, those people in the school board, they're going to run for state legislature. And then after they've been state legislature, they'll run for the federal legislature, and then they'll be in the federal Congress. So I see us getting healthy from the bottom up, but it is a polarization like we have never seen. Who would have thought that we would have debates over how many genders there are? And who would have thought that I'm a cowboy, I'm here on a ranch. Let me just take you out to my cow pasture, and you're only going to find 2 genders of cows out there. Cow and a bull, or 2 genders of cattle. But we have universities now saying there's 81 different genders, and teaching our students there's 81 different genders. And that's what they're taught. That's what they're tested on. So when we come up and say, oh, no, there's only 2 genders, now you've got a fight going over something that shouldn't have a fight going. It's just we don't have the love for truth that we once had, but it's coming back. And that's the good news. And it's coming from the bottom up, which is where I think you get the healthiest, the fastest. And that's why the scripture says, choose out leaders of 10s. And leaders of 50s, and leaders of 100s, and leaders of thousands, Exodus 18:21. You get healthy at that local level first, moving up. And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah. David, we've got about 12 minutes left. I got a question from a viewer. I think it brings the question of state level. What can the states do? The issue of abortion has become a state level question because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, it happened at...
Diane, that's what I was saying earlier. all these people have been sacked from Doge because they haven't got the money to pay for them anymore. They can't just leave them to starve. Like, I'm guessing to 20,000 or something. There'd be a lot out of their jobs. And I'm glad Trump's done it. But he's got it. I don't know where it's going to end with that, because there's going to be a lot of unemployment. And there's nowhere for them to go. There's tens of thousands, I'm assuming.
Under Biden, but it was because of Trump's nominees in the Supreme Court. So the viewer says that even though Roe v. Wade has been overturned, many states, even where abortion is illegal, they have full access. People have access to the abortion pill, and they can even buy it off of websites. What's the solution to this? How are we addressing this?
We're talking about a hard issue. What we have right now in America is abortion is given back to the states, which is an improvement. However, since that has happened, we've had 17 states vote on whether to end abortion in their state, and we've lost every one of those except one. And those states,
Which one did we win?
Well, we won Florida, but that's
Florida.
only a technicality, because in Florida, it takes 60% to pass something, and they had 58%. So the majority of the state was pro-abortion, and that's a very conservative state, Florida. Same with Missouri. That's a very conservative, very, very considered Christian state, and Christians voted against stopping abortion. And so what the biggest problem we have now is not the pagan people. It's all the Christians who believe that abortion is fine. Because what if my daughter got pregnant? I don't want her. Wait a minute. It's not what happens to your daughters. What does the Bible say? What does God say about life? And all the way back in both Leviticus and Deuteronomy, he had specific penalties if you hurt unborn life. Here in America, I mean, our original justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, like James Wilson, he wrote a law book, 1791, teaching students that, hey, from the point that you know that there is life in the womb, that life comes from God, and you can't take that life. It's not a matter of outside the womb is more life and less life inside the womb. No, it's God that gave life. And so we always had that position of pro-life. We don't hold that anymore. And I put that at the feet of the church. I expect secular pagan people to be secular and pagan. But what we've got is so many of the church people have the identical views of those on the outside. And so I see us becoming pro-life again. The good news is that the younger generation had been pro-abortion. They're now swinging back to pro-life. It's like that they have discovered that what I was being told doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and they're seeing things that are bringing them back. And so what we call our Gen Z generation is now being older Gen Z, and they're coming pro-life again, which they weren't just 7 or 8 years ago. So again, I'm seeing good things in the country. But here's the deal. According to the stats we have, only 10% of pastors have addressed the pro-life issue in the pulpit. Now, if they don't get it from the pastor, they're sure not going to get it from the news or from movies or anything else. Where else are they going to get it? Well, of course, a lot of our Christians aren't reading the Bible for themselves, but they just need that voice speaking to them. And that's where we need spiritual leadership in America in a way that we haven't seen it in a long time.
I'm sick of being welcomed to our own country. Labor and the coalition.
You just gave me a great idea that I got lots of pastors that watch me, how about once a month you deal with an issue, a biblical justice issue like abortion, once a month. You've got all the other stuff that you want to talk about, but at least once a month deal with the health of the nation, how the Bible applies to society. One of our friends of this ministry, Alan Parker, is the president of the Justice Foundation. He has an answer about what.
Diane, they've been dumbing us down since they put fluoride in the water when we were kids. That's how long they've been dumbing us down for.
But if a Christian daughter, right, got pregnant, and America has safe haven laws,
That's right.
Alan says this all the time, and even though we wouldn't do it, but you can give up your precious child at a fire department, at a hospital, no strings attached at all, because there's so many people who want to adopt that child, give that child a future. You have no pressure, no financial pressure, no pressure. You can but don't kill the child, give the child over. All 50 states have safe haven laws. So that's not an excuse for Christians to be supporting abortion.
Well, you know,
I-
Pastor, I want to hear something real quick, because the other thing I think you mentioned, doing that once a month, preaching once a month on something like a justice issue like abortion. One of the things with that big collection that you mentioned, that we have 120,000 items, we have thousands and thousands of early sermons over the last 3 centuries. And one of the characteristics that I found amazing was, throughout those previous centuries, anything that people were talking about, anything that was in the news, the pastor would cover that from the pulpit to say, hey, here's what the Bible says about that issue. And so it didn't matter if it was an earthquake, it didn't matter if it was a fire, it didn't matter if it was a solar eclipse. The Bible's the best book on astronomy that's out there. That's where the great gap.
Tell you, one thing an empire does just before it collapses is trade wars. That's very well recorded. Trade wars, for collapse of an empire follow trade wars.
Galileo, Copernicus, and other guys
Come on,
got so much
dog,
out of the
up or
Bible.
down.
So it was a deal where we used to look for things in the news and preach about that, because we'll show you what God says, and that helps people to think right. And so if a pastor would just one week a month take something in the news and say, let me show you what God thinks about this and says about this, it would help people see how practical the Bible is, and they would come back to, because right now it's just that spiritual stuff out there. Here's my real life, here's my spiritual life. No. They are the same if you can understand how the Bible applies.
Well, if pastors listening to me want to know the secret of how our social media reaches 500,000 people, subscribers, potentially more than subscribers, it happened on 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I could not in good conscience say, I'm going to stick to my notes. I scrapped my notes. I threw it away and I said, what does the Bible say about towers falling, terrorism, invasion from the outside? What does the Bible say? And it changed our ministry. Like from that day, 9/11 till now, I ended up becoming this end time ministry and a voice that people listen to. I didn't intend to do that. I just took the news and I said, what does the Bible say about it? And the pastors, you do that. It's like a formula that Jesus did. He said, what happened? What do you think about the people on whom the tower of Siloam fell?
Exactly.
Right. He took the news because you couldn't possibly have ignored 9/11. I mean, I heard many pastors never touched on the next weekend after Roe v. Wade was overturned. They didn't even mention it in the pulpits. And I've asked a couple of different church leaders, I said, why do you think that didn't happen? And they said, well, they think that maybe because the political divide, they might lose their tithers and their offerings and all that. And I said, I can't even imagine. We were in Australia and we were celebrating, praying. We prayed for justice for the children, and we got a partial answer. But it does seem like from your answer, we've got still quite a fight for the states.
Well, we do have quite a fight, but it is moving the right direction, and you'll never win if you don't start. And so we're starting to see that motion go in the right direction. And it is a really important thing that we address those items, those issues that are in the Bible. And what you just talked about, you just list off a number of items. The problem, again, back to the problem we have, because we don't do a lot of polling with pastors. And what we see with pastors at this point is, when you ask an American pastor, how do you know if your church is successful? The top 5 answers, none of them come out of the Bible. The number 1 answer is the size of my offerings. The number 2 answer is the number of people in the pews. Number 3 is the number of church staff I have. Number 4 is the square footage under roof. And number 5 is how many programs I offer. And if that's what you're going to measure, you're not going to jeopardize that. But if you measure righteousness, then you're going to start talking about that. And right now you're talking about building something and having numbers. And Jesus did not change the world because he had 100,000 people following him. He changed it because he had 12 people following him. And those 12 people, he trained them to go out and change things. It wasn't the crowds that made Jesus change, that caused Jesus to change the world. It was those disciples. And we need more disciples, not the crowds. The crowds will come. We need the disciples. And that's what churches should be doing, is making disciples of all men, not making just converts of all men.
Yeah, that's it. The way I say it is, God didn't call me to build a big church. He called me to build big people.
That's
big
right.
People are disciples. And those 12, including Paul, you take Judas away, put Paul in there. Those 12 changed the whole world. Here we are talking about Jesus in the Bible. All right, rapid fire round. All right. What does David Barton think about Elon Musk and Doge?
I think Elon Musk, I think kind of like Cyrus. God uses people who may not be God-fearing people. Now,
well, Diane, that Indian with the Christians. Wow, we're going to get persecuted in every country, so it makes sense. But gee, that's heavy.
I'm watching Elon Musk become more God-fearing. He's letting people pray for him, and he's starting to think about things he's never thought about that
See, that's a load of crap. Musk is into the Baphomet. Katy Perry and that, when they went in the atmosphere a couple of weeks ago, they had the Baphomet sewn on their sleeve. So, yeah.
know of. But God is given him a brain that is helping unearth wickedness, corruption, and fraud in a way that we've never
Okay, I don't
seen.
believe
It's
that.
astounding. Even those who didn't believe it was there, even the Democrats are shocked at how much is there. They just didn't think it was. So I love the fact that he is bringing hidden things of darkness to light. I love the fact that he is bringing righteousness, or getting that where it can be addressed righteously. I'm a big fan of what he's doing and the technology he has. And I'm a big fan of the fact that he is slowly moving in the God direction, and more people are talking to him, and he's listening.
Amen. Who's a worse threat, China, Iran, or Russia?
I think China, because they have more money and they have more influence. I think that there's probably more dedication in Iran. I think Russia is their problem. But China is the one that has all the money, has all the technology, has all the infrastructure that they don't have in Iran. If Iran had what China had, I'd really be concerned with Iran. But I think China right now has more capacity to alter more things immediately than any other nation in the world, and alter them in a bad direction.
Right. Last one is the concern about the US dollar and the predictions many people make about the collapse of the US dollar. It would radically change everyone's life in a way that they can't imagine. Is there a solution towards maybe going to a gold-backed currency? Should we go to crypto? What would David Barton advise President Trump?
Yeah, one of the things that makes our currency worth less is the fact that we are so far in debt. And if our currency is going to be worth something, we have to get the dollar worth something, and that means get out of debt, stop getting further in debt. Yeah. And so that's the first thing I would advise economically. Proverbs 22.
How do you get out of 35 trillion debt, Bo? How do you get out of that? I can't see how you can get out of that.
The borrower servant to the lender. We're in slavery to those people who own our debt. And right now they control a lot of influence that they shouldn't have. So that's the first thing I would do, is get that debt under control, start getting a balanced budget, start getting the deficit retired. Past that, the currency needs to be backed. And that's another thing they're going to find out. They're not even sure the gold is there in Fort Knox, which is supposed to back our currency. And who's got our currency? And if it turns out we don't have the backing we think we do, man, the dollar will not be worth much. And that will be an economic disaster for America and the world, quite frankly.
David Barton, you don't disappoint. You're full of knowledge.
Tell you, in India about 10 years ago, a missionary and his two sons were chased by the Hindus. They tried to get into their Jeep, and the Hindus put petrol around it, and you could guess the rest. So they're not too shy of killing a Christian when it suits them.
It's been great to have you. If there's any breaking news, I hope we can have you back. Thank you so much. Please tell our audience where they can find you. Can they enroll in these courses you're talking about?
We have a lot of courses there. Biblical Citizenship is the course that shows the Bible and Constitution, how they relate, what we can do as Christians in America. On there, we also have a lot of books that people can go to the library and see. We've got hundreds, literally thousands of videos, what we call One Room Schoolhouse, short lessons on various topics and projects. And of course,
but he's not on YouTube.
The libraries, come see our libraries. They're world class, two of the largest in America. We have.
Okay, there you go. Do this one first.
Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is only deep prophecy students would get this. Now, I normally try to keep personal things out of the program. It's not about me. But today I think I can bring you some encouraging word from a couple of conversations that my wife and I had. I think you will find this very encouraging, very interesting, I think you'll like the program. Okay, first of all, Friday night Bible study, 6:30 to 7:30, and I am going to be starting, I think, in like Revelation 8 or 9, somewhere in there by the time you see this.
Shawnee, Pakistan was part of India until I think 1949 when England pulled out of rule in India, and Pakistan was created for the Muslims. So they're basically the same people, and they don't like each other.
Also, let me get a couple of things out of the way. If you have gold or need gold or silver, 800-200 gold. If you have cryptocurrency you want to put into an IRA, go to blocktrustira.com. If you want one of the prepper bars, be it gold or silver, 844-741-1776, especially if you have an IRA or 401k. And if you want your car to start when the suitcase nukes go off, you want to get...
I hate when he plugs this. I hate when he plugs this one.
One of these on your car. They also have them for your house. And you get it at empshield.com. Use promo code PROPHECY. And also, there's a moving sale going on at Joseph Kitchen right now. And they encourage you to have churches place bulk orders so that they're going to be able to provide for a lot of people in the church in this upcoming food shortage. What you do is order a machine package. Then you order food for one person a year, 2 people a year, 4 people a year, 6 people a year. I recommend this one. Get yourself some food. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about some personal things today. And so I don't want you to get the misunderstanding. So let me give you a couple of disclaimers. One, God has not told me that the events I'm about to talk about will happen this year as in 2025. So I cannot say they'll happen in 2025. But obviously, that is what I am suspecting. We're watchmen. Matthew 24:42 says, watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known and watched the thief would come, he would have watched and would have not suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not the Son of Man cometh. So that means nobody really knows. But this verse says, yes, we're still to watch. Watch. Take ye heed, watch and pray, for you know not what the time is. For the Son of Man is a man taking a far journey, about 2,000 years, who left his house and gave authority to his servants, that's us, and every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. So we are commanded to watch. Let me say it again. We're commanded to watch. Again, I'm going to bring you some encouragement here, okay? Watch ye therefore, for you know not when the master of the house cometh, at even.
Shawnee, that's not very many for like 1 billion people.
Or at midnight, or as the cock crowing, or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. We don't want to be sleeping. And what I say, you say to all, watch. I think it was 52 times in the King James Bible you find the word watch. So he says a lot we are to watch. Now, here's part of the good news I want to bring to you. So let me say it this way. Let me just have your attention for a minute. You know, I've been studying Bible prophecy since 1976. My wife and I have been married for 42 years. So for 42 years, she has been hearing, fall of America is going to have an internal revolution, or some kind of boogeyman is coming. And likewise, my 2 sons and my daughter, they've been around this. They grew up in this. They grew up doing crusades. So, I mean, when I say 2 sons, I actually have 3 sons, but I'm talking about the 2 that were out on the crusades and stuff like that. Okay. This is what I want to say. We all get tired of nothing happening. Okay, so we hear these warnings, and most of the time they don't come. And the natural side of us wants to say, are you lying? No, I'm not lying. Well, how come it didn't come? Well, we're supposed to try to pray it away. It's kind of like, I like the analogy of the person that stops someone on the road and say, man, don't turn right. If you turn right, some guy sprinkled a bunch of nails upon the road there, and he's trying to get more people in to fix flats to get his Philly.
Okay, Shawnee, when you go, see
do
ya.
more business.
God
Don't
bless.
go right, go left. Now, if we don't listen to the warning and we turn right, we wind up pulling the nails out of our tires. That's the way it is with a lot of this. A lot of this, God doesn't want to bring. He's not willing that any should perish, but he wants all to come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. So he doesn't want to bring these things. But as watchmen, and if you watch this program, you are a watchman. I'll say if you watched it more than a couple of times, you're a watchman. So he wants us to watch, he wants us to warn, and he wants us to pray that they don't come. Remember the scripture that says that he's looking for someone to stand in the gap? If you can't find someone to stand in the gap, if you can't find someone to pray away, then it comes. Now, let me make my next point. Don't get tired of nothing. In other words, don't get tired of nothing happening. Don't even want it to happen. Watch for it. Warn for it. Ezekiel 33:6 says something more than what it says. I want you to see something that's not there, okay? But the watchman, that's us, see the sword come and blow out the trumpet, and the people be not warned. If the sword come, if any person from among them is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will require the watchman's hand. Meaning, as a watchman, we are commanded, when we see a sword coming, we're commanded to warn the people. Now, here's the point I want to say. What is missing from that verse? It doesn't say that the watchman has to guarantee that the sword comes.
Oh, man, come on, I'm sick of picking you up.
In other words, the watchman's job is to watch for the sword. If he sees the sword coming, to blow the trumpet, to warn. He's not responsible to see that the sword arrives. Maybe that the first sound of the trumpet, the sword turns around. Happy day. Maybe the sword gets hungry and goes home. I don't know. So thou, son of man, I have set thee as a watchman into the house of Israel. Therefore, thou shalt hear the word of my mouth. So that's our job, is to discern when it's God, when it's not God. And if it sounds like God, if it sounds like a sword, warn them from him. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to come to pass. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to go off the limb here just a little bit, a couple of these. I'm going to give you some of my opinions. The big thing I want to call your attention to is the one in yellow, the food shortage. I talked about this yesterday. But let me briefly cover it because I want to say that the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, top 5 of those, it's possible they could come to pass this year. And that's what I want to try to paint a picture. I want to paint a picture in your heart of what I see, because I'm bathed in this all the time. And when I wake up, I start praying, Lord, what do you want to say in the program tonight? Not what I want, not what the people want. What do you want? What do you want to say? And it's amazing the things that he has me say, the directions he has me say. There are times when emails I've got from you, thank you very much for your emails, show me the direction. Sometimes I'm even watching Fox and I get a direction. Sometimes it comes from none of that. Sometimes it just comes from in here. Now, let me try to paint a picture for you, and I'm just going off the top of my head here, which I think will help you to see what I see in my heart. Okay, so the first thing is suitcase news. When you got 38 different people, prophecies, dreams, visions, angel visits, saying suitcase news, in my mind, that's a given. There is no question. Suitcase news will hit America. I mean, I'd love to think, one of us to me.
I do this on my laptop. That's what I stream with. And I join a chat on the tablet. My tablet's on its way out. It's overheating.
You could do it. Okay, so I'd love to think that
I don't use the phone for the net because my fingers are too fat to point out the letters and that properly.
We can pray that away, and we're certainly trying. But if you look at what
I plugged in good,
Jason
Shawnee.
Meeks was told, he was shown first There was a change in the financial system. Then there was rejoicing in the streets. We've not seen either one.
Diane, we've got a real problem over here with batteries, like batteries for them push bikes. They're blowing up and burning down houses, and it's specific batteries they're doing it. They've asked for a recall. Gee, they're causing some damage.
One of those. Okay, Trump was inaugurated. We didn't see any rejoicing in the streets. We saw more rejoicing in the streets at the Super Bowl or at the national championship basketball thing, or baseball, or hockey. We didn't see rejoicing in the streets over Trump getting in. We haven't seen those. We haven't seen a financial change. I'm talking about a change of currency. We have not seen people rejoicing in the streets. The next thing he saw was a suitcase nuke going off. And I want you to remember those three. I want you to remember those as we go through it. Second thing, a meteor, tsunami, and earthquake. What could cause that? The primary cause of the meteor comes if we split Israel, going on between Russia and Ukraine. Trump is saying if something doesn't happen pretty soon, the U.S. is just going to walk away from it. Trump is trying to be encouraging. He's trying to say he thinks they can make a deal. Same thing, we're talking about the big bugaboo with the terrorists of China. Trump is trying to say, yeah, China wants to make a deal, but China is saying, we don't necessarily want to make a deal. We're not in any hurry.
Actually, China's having a lot of internal problems now. They haven't got time to make a deal.
Make a deal at all. And we're not even going to talk to you about making a deal until you drop the tariffs. Trump is saying, I ain't going to drop no tariffs. You're going to come begging at my door. You need me, I don't need you. Meaning we can probably look at that number three, food shortage.
Okay, 75% of the minerals they use in medicine, like tablets and that, are manufactured in China, 75%. So we can't afford to wipe them off.
At this point, based upon what we hear coming into our ears, you can count on it. Food shortage and everything else of coming from China is just about stopped, as Brandon Biggs said, and also Dana Coverstone saw the multi-dry index. They have nothing on the oceans moving, period. The meteor, tsunami, earthquake, that could come on or before June 1st. Now, I didn't say it will, understand. Everybody seems like it's always looking to find somebody that's trying to warn them where they missed something so they can throw the whole thing away. So I'm trying to be very careful and not say things I think the Lord's told me is coming. He's not told me any of this. Believe me, I've asked. I was asking last night, Lord, I need more information. He just won't tell me. Could we see some kind of a deal between Gaza and Israel this year? Sure. I mean, because Trump is the big peacemaker. At least that's what he says he wants to be. He's working with Russia and Ukraine. He's working with Iran. And if he's working with Iran, out of that could come through the Abraham Accords. All of a sudden, we didn't hear anything in the news. And all of a sudden, they have some kind of a deal. And that deal, according to Saudi Arabia and most of the Arab world, says you got to have a two-state solution. You got to split Israel. You got to give the Palestinians a state. Well, right now, Trump is saying, you're going to make a deal, Iran.
I reckon bugger Palestine. Don't give them a state at all. Jordan was created to take the Muslims out of Israel. That's why it was created. They got their own homeland.
Well,
they just want the Jews.
There's two ways this can go. Either you make a deal, or I'm going to bomb you and take out your nuclear facilities. Russia has already claimed if you bomb Iran, there's going to be a catastrophe. In other words, Russia will attack and destroy America. So what makes me think, I don't think that the Russia attacking America is yet. The prophecies leading up to that has just not been fulfilled. So I have to believe that at least we're not going to bomb Iran. So probably that means that we'll see some kind of an agreement. Now, could we see part of that agreement would come to a conclusion of October 7th between Gaza and Israel? Yes. The whole Arab world? Yes. And could it involve give the Palestinians a state. You remember the prophecy said that Israel will give the Palestinians a state, but it'd be a temporary measure to allow the Israelis time to strengthen the military. We're going to cover that in just a minute. Well, the very first prophecy says, here, I've got it. Let me see if I can, I don't know that, here it is. Okay, let me go through this. I know I've been through it many times, but if you want to get what is on my heart today, you want to see this the way I see it, you got to be really familiar with this. It's not just read through it, but I mean, you got to really know it, okay? 2002. So this is 26 years ago.
Come on.
Arafat going to the hospital. 2 years later, Israel will give the Palestinians a state. It'll be a temporary measure to allow the Israelis time to strengthen the military. I think out of this, Israel's going to see, and America's going to see, that really neither one of us have the strength to overcome all of the Arab world, and that's what it would take for Israel to have peace. And by the way, Ezekiel 38, many times in there, it says, and they will be dwelling in peace, all of them in safety. So by the time Armageddon gets here, Israel has basically vanquished their enemies. They've destroyed all of the Arab world, their enemies around them. Oil will be discovered in Israel. Oil will make the Jews willing to fight for the land. Now, I want you to look at number 6. I want to show you something. Number 6, Israel and America will go against most of the rest of the Arab world. I think that is when America gets attacked by Russia. Now, let me jump to the next one. See, that's 2002. Now let's go to 2006, top right corner. Omer ushers in Palestinian state. We think, I said we think, we're not sure. We think the Omer part of that is the counting of the Omer, which is the 49 days between first fruits and Pentecost. This year, it is April 13th through June 1st. So that would mean that if it's going to happen this year, and if Omer is counting of the Omer, then we would see a Palestinian state given on or about or before June 1st of this year. Okay, well, how's that work? Could it be that we would see that then? Yeah, very well. Okay, so here we are, the 25th of April. So we've got basically 5 weeks. In the next 5 weeks, is it possible that all of a sudden Russia-Ukraine gets solved? All of a sudden there's a deal with Iran. Part of that Iran deal is Palestinian state. Could we see that in the next 5 weeks?
Come on.
Bet your bottom dollar. Absolutely, we could. Now, I'm not saying that we will see it. I don't want to lose my credibility. I want to be careful to know that the things that I've said are accurate. So as a watchman, I'm doing my best to try to warn you.
Oh, come on.
Omer ushers in Palestinian state could happen on or before June 1st. Now, if that happens, does that mean that the meteor, tsunami, and earthquake happens immediately? Probably, because if you go back, every time America has turned against Israel, we are hit within 24 hours. Every time. There's none of this 2 or 3 weeks or even 2 or 3 months. So if that's true, in other words, God is trying to say, if you mess up, America, if you go against my Israel, if you go against my land, against
Diane, I will say this. There's not much Zelensky can do with 50 million. I'm thinking that Trump's done that to make sure it doesn't all collapse completely. I don't think it's got anything to do with arms.
people, I'm going to slap you immediately.
Could be wrong.
So, based upon past experiences,
Yeah.
we can expect to see.
Yeah, tally of the Miller Agreement. Exactly right. I agree.
The meteor, tsunami, earthquake, that whole scenario, the splitting of America within 24 hours, for sure within 2 or 3 days, for sure within 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, so what does that mean? So that would mean that there's a very good possibility that by the first part of June, we could see the Great Lakes open up all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. Basically, the East Coast, the West Coast, demolished. As a result of that, number 3 says, what are America's greatest times of need? At that point, all of a sudden, forget the tariffs. Forget just about everything. Great Lakes open up all the way down to the Gulf of America. East Coast, West Coast, basically devastated. At this point, America is wondering if it can survive. It calls to the world, please come and help. We've been helping you all of these years, and our good friend Israel refuses to help America. Why would that be? Because we just twisted Israel's arm. We just made Israel force themselves to give the Palestinians a state. They're not happy with us. Then, now, if you look at number 5 here, you see the orange, yellow, the orange arrow off to the left. Now, on this one, I want you to notice number 6 down at the bottom left. Orange, yeah, it's the same thing. Israel and America go against most of the Arab world. Israel has attacked America since troops. Same event. Now, in my opinion, and that's what I'm bringing you here today, I don't think that we're going to see Israel getting attacked and America sending troops until after, look here, oil is discovered in Israel. Now, if I had the money right now to go drill a well in Israel, we're probably talking 6 months to get the rig built, a month to move it to Israel, 2 months to assemble it, another 3 to 6 months to drill to the test depth they want to drill to. So we're talking a couple of years. So all of a sudden, maybe this part of it, from number 6 down, and from here, number 5 down, maybe we've got some time on that. Maybe that's 2 or 3 years. I hope so. Then as a result of that, the rest of that. But if you look at the very bottom one, it will start with an internal revolution, meaning the internal revolution is not coming until the...
And that he's talked about this internal revolution for a long time, and he blames it on the socialists. Well, look at them all protesting for their benefits to come back. They're all protesting for it. So he's sort of right here so far.
It's a Palestinian state until oil is discovered, until Americans start protesting us sending help to America. Now, let me tie something else in here. Remember Shane Warren, I'm not going to read all of it. Okay, he basically says there's a financial storm coming. All right, now what could cause that financial storm? We're already seeing China dumping their bonds. They say they're dumping $2 billion worth of bonds. What does that mean? That means the value of the dollar is going to start dropping. And it's not just China doing it, there's several other nations doing it. That could cause a financial storm. And then in the middle of that financial storm is when the earthquake hit. And that financial storm had to do with devaluing the dollar, and that's what brought protesting out, and financial riots. That's what I'm going to call them, financial riots. So is there anybody protesting those right now? Okay, let's look at the next thing. That causes silver to skyrocket. What's just happened to gold? It's now up to what, 3,400 an ounce? That's crazy, right? And by the way, the price of gold does not go up. The price of gold stays the same, but it's the value of the dollar that goes down. So in 1999, when the value of gold was $200 an ounce, which was still very, very high, but now it's pretty close to $3,500 an ounce. So that means in those 25 years, you've seen the value of the dollar fall that far. That's a lot. Then we've watched Doge fire people. We've seen people quit, and there's some 2 million, just 2 million people from government laid off. Yeah, they're going to get food money through, what about September? Some of them I believe is October. So very soon. Okay, then we got 20 million immigrants that have been getting taken care of by the Biden administration. They've been getting put up in nice hotels and fed and given credit cards and $5,000 on a credit card. Well, now Trump has stopped that. We haven't seen protests yet, but it could start coming any day. My point is, all of this could be happening this year. That's my point. Then the next one would be the devaluing of the currency is caused by buying oil in another currency. That started June 9th of 2024. Okay, that's when the agreement between Saudi Arabia and America ended. The next day, June 10th, is when they started selling oil in Chinese yuan. And we expected it to crash the dollar almost immediately, but it has not. The dollar has been amazingly resilient. Now, as a result of that, we see miracles return to the church, miracle revivals. Now, let me remind you this. We covered this back in, March.
Diane, that AI, that will be all about control of our bank accounts. You reckon? That's what it sounds like.
Has begun. I think this is saying that all of the prophecies that we saw are about to start. Now, that don't mean they all happen all at once, but the beginning ones are now beginning. That's what it's saying. So he says, today in prayer, I heard the Lord speak. The show has begun. I heard a carnival barker shouting, ladies and gentlemen, come one, come all, see the greatest show on earth, meaning the last great show between light and darkness has begun. There wasn't an empty seat in the house, meaning there's no pre-trib rapture. At this point, no one is left. No one is going anywhere. All the seats were filled. There were 3 rings, a large one in the center with clowns amusing the crowd. So one of the tactics is, one of the things going on is they're trying to amuse people with ball games and all sorts of things. The small ring had the Russian bear riding a bicycle and a large leopard Muslim jumping on crates and a parrot. That's what we see basically from the dark side. We see the Russians and the Muslims buddying up, and we see people that are listening to CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, and they're parrots. They don't have an opinion themselves. They haven't done any research. You ask them, well, why do you not like Trump? Well, he's a racist. Well, why do you not like Trump? Well, he's a racist. That's all they can say. They're just parrots. They just repeat what they heard on the news. They don't really know themselves. They're just a parrot. In the large ring was the ringmaster. That would be Jesus' angel. With the U.S. Constitution, the ringmaster was upset, ripping pages out of the Constitution, meaning the Constitution is going away. The clowns hosed it down with gasoline, so the Constitution is gone. By this point, it's going to be gone. The pair was people who just repeated what they heard. All people in the audience cheered, thinking it was all part of the show. In other words, when the Constitution is gone, instead of people realizing it is a very, very big mistake, they think it's a good thing. And at this point, I can see, with all the activist judges stopping what Trump is trying to do, all of the checks and balances stopping the cleaning of our nation, I can see where they would say that. There were 3 computer monitors, means there's 3 things happening at this time. First is a war without bombs. That's where we are right now. War between words. We just saw Trump talk bad about Putin. Bad idea, Trump. Make friends with Putin. Drop all of the sanctions against Russia.
Oh, stop jumping off.
Help Russia to continue to use the dollar. Get our rare earth minerals from Russia. Start trading with Russia. Make friends with the Russians. Do whatever you can, but you want to keep the Russians your friends. As the old saying says, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And that's true. Point is, we're also at a war over the tariffs, especially with China. So we are in the war of words. Second is a war with bombs exploding. Third is people running for their lives. And then the whole tent went completely dark. That's the sun going out 3 days before Jesus returns. The blinding light filling the temple is the morning star. Jesus returning and burning all the sin out of the world. This is an overview of what is about to happen. We are now in that season. We're in the season. So let me back up. Can we see the suitcase nukes? Well, we watch for the suitcase nukes when we see a financial change. Are we about ready for a financial change? Oh, yeah. Right now, Trump is saying he wants to get rid of the Federal Reserve, the IRS, and he's not happy with the chairman of the board.
He will get rid of them. That's the problem.
For the Federal Reserve. So, yeah, we could see.
Okay, Kelly, good night.
My guess that we'll see a financial change before the summer is up. Just my guess. At the financial change is also the rejoicing. Oh, also part of that, what Jason Meek saw was massive arrests. There's almost 500,000 sealed indictments right now that could start getting served any day. And we're not talking about illegal immigrants. We're not talking about those arrests. We're talking about senators, congressmen, bankers, international business.
Yep, I reckon Trump's going to go after him with the RICO laws. I think I heard Steve Bannon say that, but is he going to go after him with the RICO laws? I hope he does, because they certainly did break the RICO laws.
People, that's the kind of arrest we're talking about. Suitcase nukes, meteor tsunami, earthquake, food shortage, dollar fall, massive arrest, in my opinion. And this is my point. I can see the possibility of all of them happening this year. Now, here's the problem. I can also see all of a sudden, none of them happen. All of a sudden, what we think is about to happen just simply doesn't. We've seen that happen now for many years. And that's another point I want to make. Just because these things don't happen, don't get frustrated. Don't give up.
That was that one.
To noises like gasp and short, startled cries. Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is This is the Start. We have not a new dream revision, but it's new to us. And I think it's talking about what's going on today. So I think I've got some real important information. I think that
I'll come back to that, guys. Tony's got God Rules. Tony's got an interesting bit up. Elites panic after what RFK revealed in Dr. Phil in this interview.
Got an awesome video for you guys today. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. It's actually kind of interesting. I've never seen Dr. Phil with this kind of attitude. And he recently had on RFK on his Dr. Phil show. And of course, there's a number of awesome clips. He also was on Bill Maher recently too. And you can't, I'm telling you, you're not going to believe this. You're going to be like, what? That's Dr. Phil saying that? There's no way that's him. And so, of course, he just completely tears, Bill Maher a new one. He also just completely goes in on it with RFK and talks about all the stuff going on. It's actually kind of hilarious. We're going to get into also a number of clips of RFK of recent, talking about nutrition, talking about actually a lot of stuff, the medical side as well. He talks about that. He gets into actually some other crazy stuff you're not going to believe. We're going to get into as well in this video. Check out this clip here. This is like I said, I had to watch this a couple times because I couldn't believe it was him. Actually, this clip is not even like, there's one that's just like, what? Check this out. It's pretty hilarious. This is actually kind of low key here, but then it gets more and more.
And Dr. Phil was created by Oprah Winfrey, remember? So let's see how far he's gotten away from that.
Crazy as we get into this. Check this out.
I don't think Bill Maher saw that one coming.
What I think we disagree a lot on is that you think family and faith are a big fix to the problems we have. I mean, I don't have a family, and I definitely don't have faith. So I get definitely not part of the solution.
I don't think.
So you saw that. It's pretty low key. He said, you're definitely not part of the solution. He's like laughing.
Wow, Dr. Phil, good on you.
When he said it, right? Like he's just completely no respect whatsoever for Bill Maher. And you're going to see it gets way, way more ridiculous as we go forward. He says something I would never expect Dr. Phil to ever say in a couple of these clips. This one actually is not the worst one, but this one's pretty crazy too. Let's play this one really quick.
I'm freezing.
Well, no.
You get it?
For the love of God, Bill, just
give up. An alligator swamp to get to that.
Stance on everything. It's so tiresome. I'm a cool guy. Listen to me. Smoke pot. Suck off a
guy. Charlotte.
Oh my goodness! Can you believe he actually said that to Bill Maher? I just started cracking up the first time I saw that. I'm still cracking up. It's like hilarious, man. I want to watch it like multiple times. But actually, that's not even the biggest one. He actually did even worse than that. Yeah. Just totally dunking on Bill Maher.
Enough, Bill. Enough.
And Diane, there's been a 30% increase in deaths. There's a lot more deaths, like 33 times more deaths than normal.
Enough, Bill. Enough, man. It just gets more crazy as you go farther into it. Like, that's not even the worst one. Okay, that one's pretty good though. All right, that's pretty good. I have to hand it to him. That's pretty good. But this one right here, oh my goodness, this takes the cake.
Shut your mouth, Bill. Shut your mouth. I'm trying to tell you here that everyone knows what you're up to. Your job is to take clinically insane lefties and de-radicalize them to a degree. It's not working, obviously. I don't think you have an understanding of what you and your colleagues have created here. Let me put it to you this way. You've basically created an old Yeller situation. But rabies, Bill, is incurable.
So in Yeller, of course, they had to put the dog down.
Wow.
Because it had rabies. And he's saying that those, of course, on the left, well, they pretty much have, rabies. So this is what he's saying.
True, that's what makes it funny.
It's kind of funny, actually. And he says that Bill Maher's trying to, put some common sense back into these old Yellers, but it's just not taken. It's just not taken. And he goes on to say that he's going to open up a clinic for people in this old Yeller situation. All right. I think he says right here.
People. So I will be opening up a mental health ranch for the criminally insane.
Dude, this is so ridiculous.
For the criminally insane.
Look at Bill Maher's face. He's like, what? Look at this. Look at this. Oh my goodness. I can't even believe, but like, I used to watch Dr. Phil back in the old days, like a long time ago. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's a great name for Shawnee Orca.
It was like 20 years ago or more, 30 years ago. And he was so milquetoast and so nice and kind and like just never would say anything like this ever in the old days. So watching him say it now, it's like, what just happened to this dude? It's like he just completely changed overnight. And of course, he also interviewed RFK. And like I said, we're going to play some clips from that. But also RFK has been getting into a lot of things. Actually, he's going viral right now. Like tons of posts about a number of things that he said, and we're going to play some of those in this video as well. Check this out. This, of course, has to do with the soda industry and the SNAP program about nutrition. What? Check this out.
And again, Secretary Rollins had the soda industry come and knock on her door very much, very loudly, and they said to her, well, the SNAP program is not supposed to be about nutrition. She pointed out to them that there is no nutrition in a soda. And they said, well, it's not.
I wonder if RFK could sing, because he's got grit to his voice. I bet he could do a good song.
Supposed to be about nutrition, and she said that the name of the program is supplemental nutrition.
Of course, so like it's supplemental nutrition assistance. And if soda has zero nutrition in it, why is it part of the program? It's not rocket science. Of course, oh well, kids like drinking soda, and it's just kind of funny. I've been dealing with what to eat, how to be healthy, particularly of recent over the last year, and I've basically come to the conclusion that you can almost eat nothing that's in the store, that's in the restaurants. It's like getting that ridiculous now. You got seed oils everywhere. You got high fructose corn syrup in everything. It's like ridiculous. And even the diet sodas, they got, aspartame and sucralose, which is not what I would call good for you either. And, I actually had to take an allergy test because it was for many years. I was eating foods and I was like having joint pain and weird stuff. And I was like, what's going on here? And then I finally realized I'm actually allergic to this stuff. Like, I just assumed it was like, I didn't know what it was. I just assumed there was something, I don't know. I assumed it was like the sodas and stuff. So I stopped drinking those. I stopped this, stopped that. But it wasn't that. I was actually allergic to these oils they use in everything. I'm like allergic to a bunch of stuff. And guess what? All the stuff I'm allergic to is the stuff RFK is trying to get rid of. Go figure. Isn't that kind of weird? So I kind of like what he's doing. I mean, they used to make French fries in beef tallow at McDonald's back in up till the 1990s. And then they had this.
What about McDonald's, Di? Their burgers don't rot. You can leave them in your cupboard, go there a month later, and it still look exactly the same. And it tastes bad, McDonald's. I'm not into it anymore. I used to like it.
Oh, no. Consumers are concerned about too much fat in beef tallow. And of course, this was based on information that made you believe that if you eat cholesterol, you're going to get lots of cholesterol in your system, like your cholesterol is going to go up. And then actually, that's been already shown to not be true in most cases. Actually, I can show you. I just looked it up on Google AI. Google, hey, if you eat cholesterol, does it mean your cholesterol will go up? No, generally eating foods high in dietary cholesterol won't significantly raise your blood cholesterol levels. Of course, back in the 90s, they didn't know this. So like, oh no, let's remove the beef tallow from McDonald's French fries because they were using that to fry the fries. And oh no, let's change it with seed oils, which you should go watch how they create seed oils and you'll understand.
Yeah, Di, the only fast food I like now is Kentucky Fried. And yeah, that's the only fast food I like now. I don't count getting a Chinese meal from a restaurant. That's not really fast food, is it?
Okay, they have to literally wear a suit, like a mask and everything while they're making it. I wonder why. Like it's kind of funny. So we replace something good with something worse. And then like they were afraid they were gonna gain weight, and then they put something worse and it made you gain weight because your body gets inflammation, and then you can't lose weight. It's kind of ridiculous, but actually that's what happened. So of course, I think RFK has already recently gotten one fast food chain to change their fryers to using beef tallow again. But here he is talking about, like I just showed you the one about him talking about the SNAP program. Here we have him talking about sugar, and I think he's referring more so to high fructose corn syrup because he might be referring to sugar, but honestly, all the highly processed foods I've seen are basically high fructose corn syrup. So this is probably more so what he's probably talking about.
It's poison, and it feeds tumors. It destroys your brain. It destroys all of your organs, and we are programmed to eat it every.
He's talking about sugar.
Minute of the day, from advertising to it's in everything that we eat. Of course, sugar.
So he's talking about sugar there. That was on Dr. Phil, and it's kind of interesting because it is in everything. Well, I wouldn't say he should be a little bit more, like he says sugar, but like you got aspartame, sucralose, high fructose corn syrup, sugar, and all the derivatives. There's like a ton of other derivatives underneath that. I can't remember. I'm thinking of one off the top of my head. I can't remember the word, but there's a lot of other ones where they make things from sugar and they put it in the product, and it's listed, but a lot of people don't even know it's sugar. So there's like a lot of stuff. There's a ton of things like that, and obviously it's in a lot of foods. Now here we go. Of course, he talks about here pharma. Check this out. Let's see if we can get it on the screen, right?
Nah.
Are you against direct-to-consumer advertising of pharmas to consumers?
I think that's a huge mistake.
Shawnee, I don't trust the nuggets. I get wicked wings. You get like the spicy wings. They got chili in it. So I don't get the because I don't trust the nuggets. You don't know what's in them.
Bacon.
Yeah, so he gets into that. He also talks about here how a number of people are getting royalties that, let me just let him play it. Check this out.
Drugs that they approve. Is that true?
Yes, there's a couple things happening. For example, the Moderna vaccine. NIH owns half of that vaccine, 50%. So the billions of dollars that vaccine makes, half of that goes to NIH, the agency, but there's also individuals, at least 4 and maybe 6 individuals who work for NIH who are high-level deputies under Anthony Fauci who get to collect $150,000 a year forever. Not
forever, $150,000 a year forever. That sounds pretty good. Of course.
Not just good strength, but strength as well.
Is she?
Of course, it ain't going to bias you in any way, shape, or form. I mean, why would money bias you, right? Oh, that's right. That's how you buy people off. Oh, yeah, I've heard of that before. That's kind of weird. But of course, these guys are scientists, and you should trust it. You know, the science, because they wouldn't put money before your health, would they? Gee, I don't know. That's kind of a hard question there. Yeah. So we had to deal with that for years, didn't we? Check out this clip here.
And we now have the emails between him and Mark, between this group and Mark Zuckerberg. And
by the way, he's talking about how the previous, administration, talking president, wanted to make him no longer be able to speak on these things. And he was one of the first people that he went, of course, after. And he's talking about how Mark Zuckerberg is talking about these emails that were revealed in discovery in courts when he, RFK, sued them.
Other people at Twitter, et cetera, which Elon, made public, and thank God for him. And I don't think we'd have free speech in this country if it wasn't for Elon Musk.
So this is what he's saying. He's talking about how they were purposely doing this back then, and they were doing this before then. They were doing this even like back in 2017, 18. I've been seeing it since 2017, 18. I think it was about 2018 when it all started. Oh, 2017 maybe. That's when it all really started. It's been 8 years of it so far. Kind of amazing, actually. Here, of course, on this website and others. And now we have this new thing that RFK came out with. This is the one that's really going viral, where he says that the former, of course, administration, via this organization right here, were collaborating with these type of guys. Those, we're not talking car traffic here, okay? See what I'm getting at? With those, of course, that are young. He said that they knew about it. I was kind of wondering about this. Just seemed kind of weird on day one, like, oh, we're trying to stop things from going across, but then they're letting everyone come across, right? That's kind of weird. He says that they were collaborating in assisting or helping in some way, shape, or form. Again, those are his words, not mine, but it is kind of interesting that he said this. And he said that at our southern, of course, border is sort of the largest corridors on earth for this to happen. This is what he said in this meeting. So, I mean, how else can you describe all this stuff? Corruption, we have fraud, we have just, I don't know. I mean, evil, like all of this stuff added up. What does it add up to? Obviously not good. So you got all those stories that have come out. Now, our president is trying to bring jobs back to, of course, America. And you've seen how the economy has been for the last few years. Essentially, your wages are going down and inflation's going up. That's literally what's happening.
Yeah,
that's what the charts show. The charts show everyone's wages are literally going down.
We got our national election tomorrow. We go to the polls tomorrow. I hope the left doesn't get in. He's already in, and geez, they've caused some trouble.
And it shows inflation's been going up. Of course, recently, ever since our president got in, our new one, inflation's down again. And actually, it's even reversed in the case of fast food. Ironically, of course, fast food's not probably the best for you, but there's some good options out there if you know what to look for. You know what I mean? But like, you have to be pretty careful. The whole point, though, is you can see that this economy is terrible. And our president's trying to right the ship, trying to turn around the Titanic here before it hits the iceberg. And of course, as usual, it's almost like there's something trying to stop him. Something that doesn't want this to go forward. They want you to be poorer and poorer and eventually have nothing, it seems like. The only people that seem to have money are Jeff Bezos. And of course, Katy Perry, which of course, Katy Perry's now apparently not doing so well. I'm going to do a video on that probably next. Oh, that's going to be a good one. Some are saying that when she went up into space in the Blue Origin rocket, some alien changed places with her. Now she's some alien creature instead of her that has been representing her ever since she got back to Earth. I don't know if it's true or not, but we'll get into that in the next video. Obviously, Six Flags America set for closure. I wonder why. Everyone's broke. They can't go on vacation. We need some actual real jobs here other than working at a store or McDonald's, right? We need actual real jobs, like creating cars or whatever it might be.
Manufacturing cars.
Instead of it being sent over to another country. And a lot of people don't understand this, but once these tariffs are all even playing field, where China has low tariffs on us, we can sell into their country to 1 billion people. Even in India is caught on track and got on board with us. They've raised tariffs against China. India's raised tariffs against China. America's raised tariffs against China. And there's actually another major country, I can't remember which one. All of them raising tariffs to force China to allow people to sell into their country. So far, all it's been is they sell to us, we don't ever sell to them. So imagine if we could sell all of our stuff. Imagine we can make anything here. Make TVs, chairs, whatever.
That's exactly like the opium wars with China. They wouldn't allow anyone to come and do trade until a couple of American sail ships with cannons showed up and held them to ransom. So it's not unusual.
For cars, we could sell GM cars into China, sell 3 times as many cars. When you sell more cars, the price of the car goes down. The car price could be 75% the price it currently is in like 2 years, if this happens. Meaning cars will actually lower in price instead of going up. Inflation will go down. Your wages will go back up. Now, a lot of people don't understand this. That's why I've been explaining it of recent. There's so many channels that just simply are clueless. You got investors pretending like they understand this. They don't. They may know how to invest in the stock market, but they're clueless about manufacturing. They're clueless about tariffs. They're clueless about this entire thing because they're not marketers. They're not businessmen. They don't know what they're talking about. You have here, of course, them always getting concerned about, oh no, right now we can't import stuff. And of course, they're actually taking that somewhere and running with it. I talked about that in the last video. I'll talk about it in a second here. But the fact is, this is temporary. If you can, I gave the analogy in the last video about Walmart. If you're a Walmart customer and you get kicked out, it's not that big of a deal. You can go to a different Walmart. You can go to Kroger. You can go to whatever other place you want to go to. But if you're a Walmart employee and you lose your job, that's kind of a big deal, right? Like you're making all your money from Walmart. You lost your job. Now you have no job. That's what the situation is. We're like essentially the customer in Walmart getting kicked out, and China is the employee getting fired. Which one's worse? They're in a worse situation. They need us, period. They need India, period. I mean, that's probably over 70% of their market right there. They're like done. They have no job.
Okay, what he doesn't understand is China's quite willing to throw their citizens under the bus. Like, look at Tiananmen Square massacre. So if they import American cars, for example, I'm sure the officials would bully the person who buys it. So I don't think that'd work.
So they have to give in, whether or not they pretend like they're not going to. It doesn't matter. They will. So once they give in, all this stuff will start happening. That's the whole point. At any rate, so of course we had all these power, outages in a number of places in America of recent. Also over in Europe, they had a massive power outage. I think it was a power failure a few days ago at this point. Spain, Portugal, Italy. And like I said, you're going to definitely want to get this if you haven't already. Food supply, 3 months worth, $4.97, lowest price in 5
I wonder if that's true.
5 years. Go check it out. Link is in the description. This book here, The Lost Ways, how you can live without electricity. You're going to definitely need that before the electricity goes out. Get the printed version, $37.
Good point, Shawnee.
At any rate, so what I think is going on, we saw over in Britain some hacking going on at a supermarket. Remember all these stories about, oh no, empty shelves, right? You better want to know it, right? That whole thing. So of course they got to make it, they got to bolster it. So here we have in Britain, oh no, some hacking. So then everybody starts panic, of course, buying and going into the store and buying everything in Britain. Not actually, it's sort of exaggerated, but there's some. I saw Neil McCord Ward talking about this. He literally went into one of the supermarkets. He's like, "Oh, some things are gone, not much." But of course, they run with the story. Oh no, there's nothing in the stores. The tariffs, right? So that's what they're going to do. They're going to go with that, and that's what they're trying to do right now. Then you got Walmart is now trying to, in some areas, require Walmart Plus subscription to use self-checkout. And this is due to theft in certain areas. So if you're in a city where there's a lot of theft in that whatever store you go to, you might actually have to have a subscription. I think that costs $100 a year just to use a self-checkout, which probably sucks. But this is, of course, because people are doing this clever trick where they, they'll take like a Kool-Aid pack and they'll take like something really expensive and they'll put the Kool-Aid pack underneath it and scan. So it's only 40 cents instead of $50 or $20. And that's the new scam that they're doing, which of course they're getting in trouble for. Anyway, I think you get the idea. Here's an example. You can see it right on this. 42 cents 50 times. The guy fills his entire back of his truck with the goods. Where's that at? Let me show you that. Yeah, here it is. This guy's like, I really like Walmart. I was able to fill my whole car for $20. Yeah. So that's why they now have that. At any rate, so that's my video. Kind of what some of you guys think. Also, I should mention about China as well. China, mysteriously, some of their cities are emptying out. I've talked about that numerous times here on the channel. You can see here a picture of it. Big cities, Shanghai, Beijing. What's going on? It's kind of weird, the timing too. These videos are over a month old too. Some are a couple months old. Around the time that their cities start mysteriously, of course, emptying out is when we decide to bring jobs back here. I thought that was a weird coincidence, but that's my video. I'm kind of wondering some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.
That was quick. Okay, where's this other one? Wrong one, hang on.
Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is warnings you will wish you had acted on. All right, before we get started, yes, I'm doing a Friday night Bible study from 6
Okay, Shawnee, good night.
Live.
I'm out after this one too, guys.
On all of the places you can find us. This particular Friday, I'm going to be teaching through Revelation 10, 11, and if we get there, chapter 12. At least we covered 3 chapters last week. And let me just say thank you. Thank you for your emails. So many times your emails sending information I would have never found on my own. So thank you very much for your emails. But I also want to say, I think it's showing us something. Trump said, vote for me and I'll fix it. I think, okay, look at we prophecy students have to be smarter than the average bear, okay? We can't always believe the news. We can't always believe people say they're prophets either. But be cautious. Trump is acting. He's doing his best to try to fix it. I believe he is at least doing his best. But if you think he's going to fix everything, then I think you're missing it. And the reason I say that is because it used to be I got 50 to 80 emails a day. You know how many I'm getting now? 5 to 8. That indicates to me that the people that follow Prophecy Club are thinking, oh, well, maybe we don't have to follow Prophecy Club, which, by the way, we might say we noticed that in our donations. They've fallen ever since the election. don't think Trump has fixed everything. Don't think that the sun is rising when it's really setting. Don't think that the planes coming over the horizon are bringing supplies.
Yeah.
And they're actually bringing bombs.
Thanks, Di. Oh, where is he? Hang on.
Surface, they believe that will help exacerbate some of the effects of this ice melt. But it's too late. Melting ice.
Diane, he's an hour earlier. Did you have your clocks forwarded something like that?
Is if you had a glass of ice, the cubes can stand the water for some time. But have you noticed that right at the end, that glass of
Thanks,
water
Di, by the way.
with the ice in it hits a stage where everything melts almost at one time, right?
Yeah.
So it'll stay for a long time, but then all of a sudden, all at one time, all the ice starts melting fast. That's what we're going through now.
Okay, so that's why
huge ice melts.
I see.
And it's causing the water evaporation event to increase. Now that increases how much water is in the atmosphere. So it's driving storms, literally driving storms, right? With it, all these heavy rains and everything else, but it's also doing something else. It's causing a replacement of salt and fresh water. Now that's all fresh water. Once it hits a specific stage, there's going to be more evaporation events because salt water is heavy, right? Very heavy. And once it reaches a certain chemical balance, I'll say, we're not going to have any cloud formations. And we're going to regret that.
It's going to quit raining. Then it will quit raining.
Right. We'll probably go through, we may not last that long, but we'll
I was going to do him tomorrow, Di.
sure going to give until they get a handle.
There, we also got his music there. Just I have 4 of his albums there and a website. We also got formerly Jacob. We got their album there as well, and just a lot of good stuff there. But guess what? Guess who's calling? Are you serious?
Diane, I want to do this tomorrow. I haven't got an hour left. So I'll do this tomorrow. Sorry about that. Oh.
Bombs. In other words, don't think that the best is coming when actually, in my opinion, the worst has arrived. This is the very time we need to have our eyes open, our ears bent forward, listening very carefully to the Spirit. So, yes, I do appreciate your emails. You send me a lot of stuff. And so I know sometimes I'm busy and I just delete it and I forget to say thank you. So this is my thank you, thank you, thank you. Even if I don't use it, and it may be that I don't use it that day, and then I have to come back, search for it, find it. Cannot tell you how many times your emails have made the program. So that's the first point I want to make. Thank you for your emails. Now, this really kind of has nothing to do with our topic today, but it's a bit of good news. So before I get into all the bad news, let me share a little bit of good news. So Trump is saying when tariffs kick in, many people's income taxes will be substantially reduced, maybe even completely eliminated.
So are you okay with that? That I'll play him tomorrow?
I think that I'm seeing behind this that they're removing the old flag, the Constitution, the financial system we have, the Federal Reserve, the IRS. They're removing it. And they're what?
Yeah, Diane, I like to put him in the title so he gets his own stream, if you know what I mean. Thank you for understanding that.
What he's saying is there's not going to be any income taxes in the new.
And you know, Gabe doesn't mind me streaming, but I can't do it all day. It's a little bit rude to her. So I do 2 to 3 hours.
The system. So if you read past and that, you know, and that's the thing that we prophecy students try to do. We try to, because we know what the Bible says, we can read past what the news is saying. Yes, that's the news. And I'm going to tell you some news today. But hopefully one of the reasons you listen to Prophecy Club is it can tell you the prophecy behind the news. Okay? All right, now let's go on. And I'm not going to read the whole article. I'd spend a lot of time, but I've just got some headlines that I think speak to us. It says it has begun. Port of Seattle is now empty. 0 inbound ocean container ships. And it's got a picture there. This is a picture of the yard in Seattle that used to be filled with containers. So right now, see that picture behind me? That picture is an accurate picture because this is the picture 2 weeks before this picture arrives. In other words,
Wow.
There's no more a question about whether the food and other shortages are going to be arriving. It is now a foregone conclusion that in the next couple of weeks, 2, 3 on the outside.
He's right. Like, look at it. It's completely empty. Man, you're about to head in a famine, die.
We will see shortages. Now, whether the
Wow.
shelves are totally empty, I don't know. Here's another thing. The little purple dots there, between those is supposed to be a bunch of ships waiting. I didn't look this up, but I think that this is actually China. And there's supposed to be a bunch of ships waiting to load. And if you'll notice, there's nothing in the ocean, meaning they don't put ships in the ocean, they're not going to arrive. Meaning we are not, even if they were to fix it this very moment, even if all of a sudden China starts shipping again, it would, well, here, the articles.
It'd still take weeks.
There are presently 0 cargo ships docked en route. Even if the global trade war was solved now, it'd still be a minimum of 30, 55 days, maybe even as long as 7 to 9 months before the supply chains normalize. Meaning,
wow,
we're probably
Diane, because most toys are made in China. Wow, good point.
looking at empty shelves in the next few weeks. Inbound shipping container volume is down 80%. If you thought the product shortages outrage were bad during COVID, you ain't seen nothing yet. I agree with that. Here's another article. I'm making my point here. The CEOs of Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Lowe's warn that store shelves all over America could soon be empty. Okay, this is HowTurnerRadioShow.com. This is Most Important News, or Michael Snyder. Here's another one. The collapse of U.S. home sales is here.
Wow, this is heavy, guys. Like, there is no ships coming in. There's no ships at the port. Your shopping aisles are starting to go empty. And like you said, even if they agreed to fix it now, it'd still take weeks for the food to get to you. I'm not sure how much food China deports to America, but if it does, that's another famine more.
Okay, our nation is collapsing. Now, it's kind of like they say you got to break some eggs to make an omelet. Okay. Sometimes bad things have to happen to fix things. And that's what we're trying to get a point today, is that some bad times, at least brief bad times, are on the way. An industry insider explains why the coming shortages are going to be so crazy. Special report. We are being warned that there will be empty shelves throughout the U.S. starting in a couple of weeks. I hope, let me read it again. We're being warned that there will be empty shelves throughout the U.S. starting in a couple of weeks. I want to believe, I think that you're listening. I think that you're heeding this warning. Experts are warning.
It's inevitable. Thank God we got our prep food, guys.
That there will be significant shortage in the United States by the end of next month. Okay, so this is another article.
Yeah.
And I like this. This is Plan Red by Gordon Chang.
Diane, all us Christians are completely aware. Not all the Christians, but all the smart ones like us. They know it's coming.
It's a book he's written. And he's got to be expert on China. Look at what he says. Noted China analyst Gordon Chang warns that Xi Jinping believes he must destroy America to accomplish his objectives. We've got some good news here. Hang on. And that Xi already has a plan to do it. I believe that. China's campaign, using every point of contact with American society, is to destroy it. China's penetration of American society has been so thorough that the Communist Party has been able to kill Americans with impunity. He's referring to the COVID thing. The Communist Party is using all its resources to support criminal activity in America. We've been warned of that. Okay, how many Chinese came across the border? We don't know. How many of them were actually military-age men? Most of them. How many of them were then given encrypted phones and told where and when to show up for training? We don't know. Xi Jinping's China is preparing to go to war, not just unrestricted war, a political war, not just a war of words, but a war of bombs, what he's saying. Americans see it in the movies, but the Chinese regime is planning to kill Americans in even greater numbers. It's marching the country to war. Now, does prophecy say that we will go to war with China? Does, you know the answer if you've been watching. Does China say that we're going to go to war with China? Okay. Okay, does prophecy say it? Let me show you. This is what the angel said to Dmitri, August 3rd, 1984. The fall of America will start with an internal revolution in America started by the communists. Some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government would be busy with internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, and
before that happens, you wouldn't have believed what was happening now, would you? The last 100 days.
Nicaragua, Central America, but that's not the point. Here's the point. Skip the first two paragraphs. You can pause and read them if you want to, but get to the yellow. God will raise up China and Japan and many of the nations. They'll go against the Russians. They'll defeat the Russians. So the word of the Lord is that when Russia attacks, China is actually going to be on our side. Now, let me tell you about a conversation I had with my wife this morning. So I'm the avid news watcher, and she's kind of got her fill of it, frankly, and I don't blame her. I think there's a lot of people get a lot of fill of Prophecy Club, but the things that God is saying. They don't want,
I'm not allowed to watch a movie and mention what I've seen at the gate because it ruins the movie for her.
The human psyche can only take so much. Kind of like eating cookies. You can only eat so many cookies. Kind of like bad news. You don't have so much bad news. I understand that. But anyway, so she walked through the living room where I'm watching the news and devouring every word of it so I can make sure I bring you all the best news. And she says, there is no way that China, as it is today, is going to agree to 145% tariffs. They are not going to bend the knee to Trump. They're not going to agree with Trump. They're not going to go along with it. And what makes me think is going to happen is someplace over the process of the next few years between now and when the Russians attack to destroy us in 1 hour, that China also has an internal revolution. I recall the prophecy where it said the underground church will
China's already having a lot of dramas.
Have above ground results. And I don't have but just one prophecy saying that there's going to be some kind of an internal revolution in China. But to me, I think that's what she was saying this morning. China is never going to agree to this unless there's a regime change. That's what Chang is saying. Chang is saying the only way that we're going to get along with China, the only way we're going to resume trade is if there's basically a regime change, as in an internal revolution in China. Could it be that that's what all of the tariffs are about to cause in China? I don't know. I don't have prophecy on it, but let's watch. Now let's go on to the next point. China is exhibiting end of regime conduct. What's he saying? He's saying that China is heading to an internal revolution. He's saying, this is Gordon Chang saying, that Xi Jinping is going to be overthrown and they'll have new leadership in China. That's the only way this thing with these tariffs with China is going down. There's another guy on this morning. I don't have an article to show you on it, but he was saying, he says, I think it was Besant, the financial guy. He said that the problem with China is not just the tariffs. He said that they're a nation of cheaters and liars. He said they steal our intellectual property. They won't let our products in. They how do I say it? They lie, cheat, and steal. I wish I could have all the exact details he had. I know I was going to say this, but it's not just a matter of agreeing to a percentage of a tariff. We need to be able to, when they're stealing our intellectual property, they steal our ideas, they remake them, and then sell them around the globe, even sell them in America. He said, so it's not just a few things or a thing or two that can be fixed to fix the problem with China. It's basically saying they need a whole new regime. Basically, it's saying they need a whole new government leadership, kind of like how Trump basically has overthrown Biden. That same kind of thing is going to have to happen in China. And I do recall when one of the prophecies saying about how when there's massive arrests, that they were also heading over to China with plane loads of documents, and they were going to go to China and other nations and do likewise. So it may very well be, because we know that China is going to be on our side when the Russians attack. So it may very well be that all of this tariff.
That's fantasy. There's no way China's going to team up with the US against Russia. Sometimes Phil gives me the cranks because he does this.
Problem always
Stan, not Phil.
Problems with China, and I do not have prophecies on it. I'm speculating, I'm guessing. It could well be that we're about to see an internal revolution in China, because that's what the guy was saying. He said, it's not a matter of tariffs. It's a matter of China is going to have to change. That's what he said. He didn't say change regime, change leadership. He didn't add that extra word, but that's the true meaning of it. Let's go on. At a time when China needs friends, it is going away. It's going out of its.
Yeah, isn't China Gog and Magog? Russia and China Gog and Magog. So I don't understand how he thinks America's going to become friends with China. They're sort of half by it. They're in a trade war with China now.
Way to antagonize not just the Philippines, but also Taiwan, South Korea, and Australia. In other words, it's acting like a big bully. He says this shows that this is end of regime conduct. In other words, China's heading to an internal revolution. China's heading to a major change of leadership. And that fits a couple of prophecies, which is why I'll send you to josephkitchen.com. Look, let me tell you what, just a few minutes ago, I called my wife in and I showed her that on an article.
Okay, guys, I'm out. See you tomorrow if Mike from around the world die.
Well, I'm about to show you two. I said, look at this. And it was saying, well, no, you remember the article with Hal Turner where it had no more